Sarah, let's begin by discussing why financial planning is such a crucial life skill. Many people feel overwhelmed when they hear terms like budgeting or investing. Can you break down why having a plan for your money matters so much?
Absolutely, Alex. Financial planning is like building a roadmap for your money without it. You might get lost or end up somewhere you don't want to be. Studies from the CFP board show that people with a financial plan are twice as likely to achieve their goals, whether that's buying a home, traveling, or retiring comfortably.
That's a good analogy. So it's not just for the wealthy or business owners, it's relevant to everyone. Next, let's move into the first steps someone should take if they're completely new to this.
Exactly. It's never too early or too late to start. Even simple steps, like tracking your expenses or setting small savings goals, can make a big difference over time. Shall we talk about budgeting as the foundation?
Yes, let's dive into that as our next topic. When people hear the word budget, they often imagine strict rules or giving up fun. How can we make budgeting less intimidating and more approachable for beginners, Sarah?
Great question, Alex. Think of a budget as a tool to help you decide where your money goes, rather than wondering where it went. It's like giving every dollar a job. Start with a simple list of monthly income and expenses, nothing fancy, just pen and paper or a basic spreadsheet.
That's manageable. Are there common categories people should include? For example, housing, food, or entertainment?
Yes, exactly. The main categories are usually housing, food, transportation, utilities, savings, and personal spending. By assigning amounts to each, you can spot areas to cut back. For instance, if dining out is taking up too much, maybe you cook at home one extra night per week.
That's a sensible approach. Let's move on to how people can actually stick to their budget once they've created it. Sticking to a budget can be tough, especially when unexpected expenses pop up. Sarah, what are some practical strategies for staying on track?
One powerful tip is to automate your savings and bill payments whenever possible. This way, you don't have to rely on willpower alone. Also, reviewing your budget weekly helps catch small leaks before they become big problems. Think of it like regular maintenance for your car.
I like the car analogy. Are there any tools or apps you recommend for beginners to track their spending?
Absolutely! Free apps like Mint or YNAB, You Need a Budget, make it easy to categorize expenses and set alerts. Even snapping photos of receipts on your phone can help. The key is consistency, checking in often, not just once a month.
Consistency really is key. Once someone feels comfortable managing their budget, what's the next step in their financial journey? Sarah, let's talk about financial goals. Why is it important to set clear, specific goals instead of just saving money?
Having a specific goal makes saving more motivating, like aiming for a vacation, a new laptop, or an emergency fund. Psychology research shows people are 42% more likely to achieve goals they write down and visualize. It gives your budget a purpose beyond just numbers.
That makes sense. So, should people set short-term and long-term goals? How do you recommend balancing them?
Definitely balance both. Short-term goals could be saving $500 for car repairs, while long-term could be retirement or buying a house. Assigning timelines and amounts helps break big dreams into manageable steps. And don't forget to celebrate small victories along the way.
Celebrating progress is a great motivator. Speaking of saving, let's explore some effective saving techniques next. Saving money can feel impossible, especially with a tight budget. Sarah, what are some realistic strategies for people at any income level to start saving effectively?
One classic method is pay yourself first. Treat savings like a non-negotiable bill. Even 10 a week adds up to over $500 a year. Another idea is the 50-30-20 rule. 50% for needs, 30% for wants, 20% for savings. Adjust those percentages to fit your life, but always prioritize saving something.
That's helpful. What about emergency funds? Why are they so important, and how much should someone aim to save?
Emergency funds act like a safety net when life throws you a curveball like job loss or medical bills. Experts usually recommend 3 to 6 months of living expenses. It sounds daunting, but you can start small. A few $100s is better than nothing and builds confidence over time.
Great advice. Once someone is saving regularly, when should they consider starting to invest? Investing sounds complicated to many beginners. Sarah, can you explain what investing actually means using simple terms?
Sure, Alex. Investing is like planting seeds today, so you can harvest more later. Instead of just saving money in a bank, you put it to work in things like stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. Over time, thanks to something called compound interest, your money can grow much faster than in a regular savings account.
That's a helpful metaphor. What's the difference between saving and investing, and why should people consider both?
Saving is for short-term goals and emergencies. It's safe, but usually earns little interest. Investing is for long-term growth, like retirement. There's more risk, but historically, the U.S. stock market has averaged about 7% annual return after inflation. Balancing both gives you security and opportunity.
Excellent. Next, let's discuss how someone can get started with investing even with just a small amount of money. Many people think you need thousands of dollars to invest. Is it possible to start investing with just a small amount, Sarah?
Absolutely. Thanks to technology, there are now investment apps like Acorns or Robinhood where you can start with as little as $5. Some platforms offer fractional shares, so you can buy part of a stock instead of a whole share. This democratizes investing, making it accessible to almost anyone.
That's encouraging. For beginners, are there safer options to start with compared to riskier investments?
Yes, beginners might start with index funds or ETFs, which spread your money across many companies. This reduces risk compared to buying individual stocks. Think of it like buying a fruit salad. Instead of just one apple, if one piece goes bad, you still have the rest.
Great analogy. But investing also involves risk. How can new investors manage that risk responsibly? Risk is a big concern for new investors. Sarah, how can someone understand and manage the risks of investing without getting overwhelmed?
First, it helps to know that all investments have some risk, but not all risk is bad. Diversifying, spreading your money among different types of investments can help smooth out the bumps. Also, time is your friend. Historically, markets recover from downturns if you stay invested long term.
So patience is key. Are there practical steps beginners can take to avoid common investment mistakes?
Definitely. One big mistake is trying to time the market, guessing when prices will rise or fall. Instead, experts suggest investing regularly, like monthly, and sticking to your plan. Also, never invest money you might need soon. Keep that in savings instead.
That's reassuring advice. Now, let's pivot to discuss some common myths and misconceptions about financial planning. There are a lot of myths out there like, I'm too young to plan, or I don't make enough to save. Sarah, can you address some of these misconceptions?
Absolutely. One myth is that budgeting means you can't enjoy life. In reality, a good budget creates freedom by letting you spend on what matters most. Another is that investing is only for the rich. As we discussed, anyone can start small and grow over time. The key is to begin, no matter your age or income.
That's empowering. How about the idea that you need perfect knowledge to start?
Perfection isn't necessary. Even experts don't have all the answers. Learning as you go and asking questions is part of the process. Remember, financial planning is a lifelong journey. Progress is more important than perfection.
That's a great reminder. Next, let's cover some essential vocabulary that learners might encounter during financial conversations. To wrap up the main discussion, let's go over some key vocabulary words. Sarah, could you define budget, interest, and asset in simple terms?
Certainly. Budget means a plan for how you spend and save money each month. Interest is the money you earn from your savings or investments or sometimes pay on loans. Asset is anything valuable you own, like cash, a car, or even stocks.
Those are helpful. What about liability and net worth?
Liability is something you owe, like a loan or credit card debt. Net worth is the total value of your assets minus your liabilities. It's a snapshot of your financial health.
Thanks, Sarah. Now, let's give our listeners a speaking challenge to practice these concepts in real conversations. To solidify today's lessons, here's a speaking challenge. Imagine you're advising a friend who wants to save for a trip but doesn't know where to start. What steps would you suggest using the vocabulary we discussed?
That's a fantastic exercise, Alex. I'd recommend listeners try role-playing this scenario with a partner. Start by helping your friend list their income and expenses, identify possible savings, and set a clear goal like 10 for a trip in 6 months.
Great approach. Encourage your friend to use phrases like budget, saving strategy, or emergency fund during the conversation. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become in real-life situations.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Language, like financial planning, improves with practice and persistence. Keep at it, and you'll see progress in both areas.
Wonderful advice, Sarah. That wraps up today's episode. Thanks for joining us, and happy learning. Welcome to today's episode, where we'll explore the journey of meeting with a financial advisor. To kick things off, why is financial planning such a crucial step for young professionals like Emma?
Financial planning is the bedrock of financial security. For someone starting out, like Emma, it helps clarify priorities, manage expenses, and set achievable savings goals. Without a plan, it's easy to overspend or miss out on future opportunities.
That makes sense, but many people feel intimidated or even ashamed about their financial knowledge. How can advisors help break down this barrier?
Advisors can create a non-judgmental space using simple language and relatable examples. By focusing on guidance rather than criticism, they turn financial planning into an empowering, collaborative process rather than a daunting task.
Let's delve into the first step, assessing income and expenses. Emma earns $2,000 after taxes and spends about $1,700 monthly. What insights can we draw from this snapshot?
This breakdown reveals Emma is saving roughly $300 each month. Even a small surplus is a starting point. By tracking spending categories like rent, food, and transportation, she can identify areas for potential savings.
So it's not just about the total, but understanding the details. Are there common pitfalls when estimating expenses?
Absolutely. People often underestimate irregular costs like annual subscriptions or car repairs. Using budgeting apps or spreadsheets can help uncover these overlooked expenses and create a more accurate picture.
Transitioning from assessment to action, how would you guide Emma in building a practical monthly budget?
I recommend the 50-30-20 rule. Allocate 50% for needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for savings. For Emma, that means 10 for essentials, 600 for discretionary items, and 400 for savings or debt repayment. Adjustments can be made based on her lifestyle.
That structure provides flexibility. What if Emma's spending doesn't fit these proportions?
It's a guideline, not a strict rule. The key is consistency and awareness. If her rent is high, she may need to trim wants or find creative ways to boost her income.
Once a budget is set, defining concrete goals is next. Emma mentioned saving for travel or a car. How should she approach these aspirations?
Breaking large goals into smaller milestones is vital. For example, if Emma wants to save 30 for a car in 2 years, she'll need to set aside $125 each month. This clarity makes goals actionable and less overwhelming.
That's a tangible approach. How can she stay motivated over time?
Visual aids, like progress trackers, and celebrating small wins help. Some people use separate savings accounts labeled for each goal, making it easier to see their progress.
Let's explore strategies to maximize savings. With $300 left each month, what practical steps can Emma take to increase her savings rate?
Automating transfers to a savings account is effective. This pay yourself first method reduces the temptation to overspend. Reviewing recurring subscriptions and considering lower cost alternatives can also free up extra funds.
That's helpful. Are there any statistics on the impact of automation?
Yes, a 2022 study by NerdWallet found that people who automate savings are 40% more likely to reach their goals compared to manual savers. Automation makes saving effortless and consistent.
Transitioning to investing, Emma expressed concern about risk. How do you explain investment basics to someone new and cautious?
I compare investing to planting a tree. It grows over time with patience. Risk is part of the process, but starting with low-risk options, like index funds, and focusing on long-term growth can make investing less intimidating.
What about the fear of losing money?
Losses can happen, especially in the short term. However, diversified investments historically yield positive returns over longer periods. For instance, The S&P 500 has averaged 10% annual returns since 1926, despite market downturns.
Let's compare outcomes. If Emma saves $100 a month, how does that stack up against investing the same amount, say, over 5 years?
Purely saving at 1% annual interest, Emma would have about $6,100 after 5 years. If she invested in a basic index fund averaging 7% returns, she could have over 15% difference, illustrating the power of compound growth.
That's a striking contrast. How does inflation factor into this equation?
Inflation, currently around 3% annually, erodes purchasing power. Investing helps counter this effect, ensuring savings grow faster than rising costs over time.
Many beginners, like Emma, fear investing is only for the wealthy or requires expert knowledge. How do you address such myths?
Investing is accessible to nearly everyone today. Platforms allow starting with as little as 5. Education is key. Understanding basics like diversification and dollar cost averaging can help anyone get started safely.
Are there tools or resources you'd recommend for first-time investors?
Robo-advisors, educational apps, and community investing groups are great entry points. Many offer free content and simulations so users can learn without risking real money at first.
Life is unpredictable. How can Emma adapt her financial plan if her circumstances change, like a job loss or medical emergency?
Building an emergency fund, typically 3 to 6 months of expenses, is essential. Regularly revisiting and adjusting the budget ensures it remains relevant. If income drops, prioritizing essentials and pausing discretionary spending can help weather tough times.
What about positive changes, like a salary increase?
A raise is an opportunity to boost savings or investments. Following the Save More Tomorrow strategy, automatically increasing savings with every raise prevents lifestyle inflation while accelerating financial growth.
As we wrap up, what's your key advice for young professionals like Emma to build long-term financial confidence?
Start early, stay consistent, and continuously educate yourself. Even small, regular steps compound over time. Use setbacks as learning moments and celebrate progress to stay motivated on your financial journey.
That's encouraging. Any final tips for listeners feeling overwhelmed by their finances?
Remember, everyone starts somewhere. Seek guidance, use available tools, and set achievable goals. Financial confidence grows with each informed decision, turning anxiety into empowerment.
Today, we're breaking down essential terms from our earlier conversation. To start, Alex, what is meant by income in personal finance?
Great question. Income refers to all the money you receive, typically from your job, like your salary. It could also include bonuses, freelance payments, or even passive income such as dividends.
So, income is any money coming in. Now, the word expenses came up a lot. Could you clarify that term with some real-life examples?
Absolutely. Expenses are the costs or money you spend. Think of rent, groceries, transportation, or even your morning coffee. Every purchase or bill fits under expenses, whether it's essential or optional.
Transitioning from income and expenses, another key term was budget. Can you explain what budgeting involves in practical terms?
Of course, a budget is essentially a financial plan. It helps you allocate your income toward different expenses and savings. Imagine it as a roadmap for your money, guiding your spending each month to avoid overspending.
That makes sense. Are there common methods people use to create a budget?
Yes, popular methods include the 50-30-20 rule, where 50% of income goes to needs, 30% to wants, and 20% to savings. Tools like spreadsheets or budgeting apps can also simplify the process.
Let's move to the phrase, "it adds up fast." How do we interpret this in a financial context?
This idiom means that small, seemingly insignificant expenses can accumulate quickly into a large total. For example, spending $5 on coffee each day results in over 1,800 annually, a classic case of small costs adding up.
That's a striking example. Would you say this phrase also applies outside of finances?
Definitely. You can use it for time management too. For instance, checking social media for just 10 minutes a few times a day can add up to hours each week.
Now, let's discuss the grammar behind "if you save $300 a month, you could save $600 in 1 year. What type of sentence is this?
That's a first conditional sentence. It's used to talk about real possibilities in the future. The structure is if plus present tense, followed by could or will to show the result.
Can you give another example relevant to finances?
Sure. For instance, if you track your expenses, you could find ways to save more money. It's all about linking an action to a likely outcome.
Building on that, how can conditional sentences help with setting financial goals?
Conditionals encourage forward thinking. By saying, if I save consistently, I could afford a vacation next year, you create a clear link between your behavior and your goals, making them feel more achievable.
That's helpful. Do language learners often struggle with this structure?
Yes, especially choosing the correct verb tense. Practicing real scenarios, like financial planning, helps solidify the grammar and the practical skill.
Let's bring it together by comparing income and expenses. Why is understanding this balance important?
It's crucial because spending more than you earn leads to debt, while spending less enables saving. For instance, a 2022 U.S. survey found 63% of adults struggle to cover a $500 emergency, often due to not tracking this balance.
Are there simple ways to monitor this balance daily?
Yes, recording transaction 7 with a notebook helps. Apps automatically categorize spending, making it easy to see if your expenses are overtaking your income.
Transitioning to real-world application, what strategies can listeners use to manage their expenses effectively?
Start by distinguishing between needs and wants. Prioritize essentials like housing and food, then limit non-essential spending. Regularly reviewing subscriptions and eating out less can yield significant monthly savings.
Are there tools that help automate these strategies?
Definitely. Budgeting apps like Mint or YNAB track your habits and send alerts when you approach spending limits, making it easier to stay disciplined.
Let's shift gears and talk about the psychology behind budgeting. Why do people find it challenging to stick to a budget?
Behavioral economics shows we tend to underestimate small expenses and overestimate future discipline. Emotional spending like buying treats when stress can sabotage the best-laid plans unless you build in small rewards.
Is there a way to make sticking to a budget feel less restrictive?
Yes, framing a budget as a tool for freedom, not limitation, helps. Allowing for small indulgences within your plan can reduce feelings of deprivation, making long-term success more likely.
Moving forward, what are the long-term benefits of consistently saving a portion of your income?
Over time, even modest monthly savings compound. For example, saving $300 a month at a 3% annual interest rate could grow to over $19,000 in 5 years. This provides a safety net and opens doors to investments or travel.
That's motivating. How can someone stay committed to saving over many years?
Automating transfers to a savings account and setting clear, meaningful goals like home ownership or education make saving habitual and purposeful.
To wrap up, let's review. How can listeners apply today's vocabulary and grammar lessons to everyday life?
By integrating words like income, expenses, and budget into daily conversations about money and using conditional sentences to set goals, listeners can boost both their English skills and financial literacy in practical, meaningful ways.
Thanks for breaking down these concepts, Alex. Any final advice for building strong financial habits while improving language skills?
Practice is key. Discuss your own budgeting strategies with friends. Write down your financial goals using conditionals and keep learning new terms as your financial journey evolves.
Let's start by exploring why saving money can be so challenging. Dr. Carter, what psychological barriers typically prevent people from saving effectively?
Great question. Many people experience present bias, meaning they prioritize immediate rewards over future gains. For example, it feels easier to buy a coffee now than to save that $5 for later.
That makes sense. Are there ways to counteract this bias and encourage smarter saving habits?
Absolutely. Behavioral nudges, like setting automatic transfers into a savings account, help reduce the temptation to spend. Some apps even use gamification to make saving feel more rewarding.
Building on that, let's talk about budgeting. Many listeners struggle to create and stick to a personal budget. What steps can they follow to make budgeting less overwhelming?
Start small. Track every expense for a month, then group them into categories. identify needs versus wants. From there, you can set spending limits for each category, making adjustments as needed.
Can technology help with this process?
Definitely. Apps like Mint and YNAB automate tracking and alert users if they're approaching their budget limits. This real-time feedback helps reinforce positive spending habits.
Let's transition to growing savings. Many people hear about compound interest, but what does it really mean in practical terms?
Compound interest means your money earns interest, and then that interest earns more interest. Imagine planting a tree. Not only does it grow, but it also produces seeds for future trees, multiplying over time.
Can you give an example of how compound interest affects long-term savings?
Sure, if you invest 100 monthly at a 6% annual return, after 20 years, you'll have over 46 0 not just the 24 0 you put in. That's the magic of compound growth working for you.
Now, let's get practical. Many people set specific monthly saving goals. What are some effective strategies for reaching those targets?
One method is the pay yourself first approach. Transfer a set amount to savings as soon as you get paid. Another is the envelope system, where you allocate cash for various expenses and save what's left.
What about adjusting goals if income varies?
In that case, use a percentage-based approach. Save 10% of whatever you earn that month. This keeps your goals realistic and adaptable.
Of course, obstacles can arise. What are some of the most common reasons people fall short of their saving goals, and how can they overcome them?
Unexpected expenses like car repairs or medical bills often derail savings. Building an emergency fund just $500 to start can cushion these shocks and help you stay on track.
Are there psychological tricks to help resist unnecessary spending?
Yes. Try the 24-hour rule. Before making a non-essential purchase, wait a day. Often, the urge to spend passes, and you end up saving more.
Let's connect motivation to money management. How does having a clear goal, like buying something in a year, impact a person's ability to save?
A specific goal acts like a roadmap. When you visualize buying a laptop or taking a trip, every dollar saved feels purposeful. Studies show goal-oriented savers are 60% more likely to reach their targets.
Are there techniques to make these goals more tangible?
Yes, write your goal down, put a picture of it on your fridge, or use apps that show your progress. These reminders keep motivation high and make saving more engaging.
This brings us to routine. How important is regular practice like saying financial goals out loud to developing healthy money habits?
Repetition cements behavior. Speaking your goal reinforces commitment, much like athletes visualize winning before a game. Over time, these affirmations shift your mindset from spender to saver.
Can you share a daily habit that supports this transformation?
Start each morning by checking your bank balance and restating your goal. It's a small act, but it sets a financial intention for the day.
Shifting gears, let's discuss investing. For beginners, how can investing help their money grow beyond what's possible in a savings account?
Investing taps into markets like stocks or bonds, which historically outpace regular savings accounts. For instance, the S&P 500 has returned about 10% annually over the last century, compared to less than 1% for most savings accounts.
But what about the risks?
All investments carry risk, but diversifying spreading money across different assets can help manage it. Starting with low-cost index funds is a common, balanced approach for beginners.
Let's ground this in real life. Can you share a hypothetical scenario where someone uses both saving and investing to reach a major goal?
Absolutely. Imagine Sarah wants to buy a 12-0 car in 3 years. She saves $250 monthly and invests half in a diversified fund. If the investment earns 7% annually, she could reach her goal faster, even accounting for market ups and downs.
That's a powerful example. Does this approach work for smaller goals as well?
Yes. Even for things like emergency funds or holiday trips, blending short-term saving with cautious investing can maximize results, making dreams more achievable.
As we wrap up, what advice would you give listeners just starting their financial journey?
Begin with small, consistent steps. Celebrate every milestone, no matter how minor. Remember, financial health is a marathon, not a sprint. Progress builds over time.
For those feeling hesitant, how can they build confidence to take action?
Practice out loud, as we did today. Saying, I want to save more money isn't just an exercise, it's a declaration. Each repetition strengthens your resolve and moves you closer to your goals.
Welcome back to our podcast, where today we're guiding new learners through the essentials of personal finance. To kick things off, why is financial planning such a crucial first step, especially for beginners?
Thanks for having me. Financial planning is like drawing a roadmap for your money. Without it, you're driving blind. According to a 2023 Fidelity survey, people with a financial plan are twice as likely to feel confident about their future.
Confidence is key. And as we move into the specifics, what's the first actionable piece of advice you'd give to someone just starting?
Absolutely. The first step is to track your spending. It's simple but powerful, and it lays the foundation for smarter decisions. Let's break down how that works.
So, tracking spending sounds basic, but why is it so transformative for financial beginners?
It's all about awareness. Many people underestimate how much they spend monthly. For instance, coffee shop visits can add up to over 10 a year without realizing it. Tracking exposes hidden spending patterns.
That's eye-opening. Are there user-friendly ways or tools you recommend for this process?
Definitely. Beginners can start with a simple notebook or use free apps like Mint or YNAB, which automatically categorize transactions. Digitizing the process helps visualize where every dollar goes.
And as you mentioned, seeing your spending can be a reality check, leading to better habits.
Exactly. It's the first domino. Once you're aware, you're empowered to change.
Let's transition to budgeting. The 50-30-20 rule comes up often. Can you break down what it means in practical terms?
Of course, it's a simple framework. Allocate 50% of your income to needs, 30% to wants, and 20% to savings or debt repayment. Think of it as building 3 buckets, each serving a different purpose.
That's a clear mental model. What if someone's expenses don't fit neatly into those percentages?
Great question. The rule is a guideline, not a law. If your rent is high, you might adjust the percentages. The key is maintaining balance so you're not neglecting savings or overspending on wants.
So flexibility is important, but the principle remains deliberate allocation.
Exactly. It's about intentionality, not perfection.
To make this concrete, can you share a story of someone who successfully applied the 50-30-20 rule?
Certainly. Take Maria, a recent college grad. She tracked her spending and realized dining out ate up her budget. By applying the 50-30-20 rule, she limited restaurant visits, boosted her savings rate, and paid off her student loan 2 years early.
That's inspiring. It shows small changes can have big impacts over time.
Absolutely. It's about progress, not perfection. Even incremental improvements compound, much like interest in a savings account.
Switching gears, many beginners struggle to stick to a budget. What are the most common obstacles, and how can they be overcome?
One big hurdle is unexpected expenses. Life isn't always predictable, so building in a miscellaneous buffer within your budget can help. Another issue is motivation. Seeing slow progress can be discouraging.
How do you recommend keeping motivation high during the early stages?
Tracking small wins is crucial. Celebrate milestones, like saving your first 100. Also, use visual aids. Progress charts or checklists can make abstract goals feel tangible.
Now, let's move to investing. The advice is to start small, but why is that so effective for beginners?
Starting small lowers the psychological barrier. Investing 10 a week may seem trivial, but with compound interest, that can grow significantly over decades. It's like planting a tree. The sooner you start, the more it grows.
That tree analogy really brings it home. Is there research backing the benefits of starting early?
Yes, a Vanguard study showed that people who start investing in their 20s can end up with twice the retirement savings compared to those who wait until their 30s, assuming similar contributions.
What are the simplest ways for a beginner to dip their toes into investing without feeling overwhelmed?
Look for user-friendly platforms with low minimums, like index funds or robo-advisors. For example, some apps let you start with as little as 5. These tools automate diversification, reducing risk.
Are there risks new investors should be aware of even with these tools?
Absolutely. All investments carry risk, but spreading your money across different assets diversification helps cushion against market swings. Education is your best defense.
Let's address misconceptions. What are some common myths that might scare beginners away from investing altogether?
A widespread myth is that you need a lot of money to start. In reality, many platforms cater to micro-investing. Another is that investing is like gambling, but with research and long-term planning, it's a calculated strategy.
So the key is distinguishing between speculation and informed investing.
Exactly. Think of investing as planting seeds for the future, not rolling dice at a casino.
Bringing it all together, how can new learners integrate tracking, budgeting, and investing into a cohesive plan?
It's about setting clear goals and making incremental adjustments. Start by tracking spending. Establish a budget using a model like 50-30-20, then allocate even a small portion toward investments. Review and tweak your plan monthly.
It sounds like the key is consistency, not perfection.
Exactly. Financial health is a marathon, not a sprint. Small, sustained actions build lasting security.
To wrap up, what's the one message you want every beginner to take away from today's discussion?
Plan your money and you plan your future. Even the simplest steps tracking, budgeting, starting small pave the way for financial freedom. No action is too small to matter.
That's a powerful note to end on. Thank you for sharing these insights and practical tips for our listeners.
Thank you for having me. Remember, every financial journey starts with a single step. Start yours today.
Congratulations, everyone. We've just wrapped up a journey exploring how to talk about money in English. Before we sign off, could you share why setting language goals, especially around real-world topics like finance, truly matters?
Absolutely. Having specific goals, such as mastering money vocabulary, makes language learning much more practical. It's like saving coins in a jar. A little progress each day adds up, and soon you're able to handle real-life conversations with confidence.
That's a great analogy. Speaking of practice, daily exposure seems key. Can you explain why even 5 minutes a day can make such a difference for fluency?
Consistent practice helps move new vocabulary from short-term to long-term memory. Think of it like watering a plant. A little every day keeps it healthy and growing. This way, you'll recall the right words when discussing money matters in English.
Let's dive deeper into daily routines. What simple activities can listeners try at home to reinforce today's money terms?
One effective method is journaling. Write a few sentences each evening about your spending or saving habits. Alternatively, use flashcards with words like budget, expenses, or income. Repetition in context cements understanding.
Is it better to focus on speaking, listening, or writing when practicing these terms?
Ideally, combine all three. For example, record yourself discussing a weekly budget, listen back, and jot down any tricky phrases. This multi-sensory approach accelerates learning and builds confidence.
In the outro, we asked, what do you want to save for? Why is sharing personal goals like saving for a trip or a new gadget so motivational when learning English?
Sharing goals personalizes your learning journey. When you talk about saving for something meaningful, vocabulary becomes emotionally relevant. Research shows that learners with personal stakes retain new language up to 30% better.
That emotional connection makes sense. Can you give a hypothetical example of how a listener could use today's phrases to discuss their goals?
Sure, imagine you're saving for a laptop. You might say, I'm budgeting $20 each week so I can buy a new computer by the end of the year. This sentence uses practical vocabulary in a real context.
We encourage listeners to comment and share. How does engaging with others online or offline boost language skills, especially around financial topics?
Interacting with others provides feedback and exposes you to diverse perspectives. For instance, discussing saving tips in an online forum introduces new idioms or slang. Peer support also increases accountability, making you more likely to stick with practice.
So joining a group or challenge could help someone stay on track?
Exactly. Even committing to weekly check-ins with a study buddy has been shown in studies to double vocabulary retention rates, especially when financial goals are discussed in English.
Our outro included lots of encouragement. Great job, and keep learning. Why is positive reinforcement so important for language learners?
Positive reinforcement boosts motivation and reduces anxiety. When learners feel supported, they're more likely to take risks, like trying out new phrases about money. Neuroscience shows that praise actually helps encode new information in the brain.
Are there specific ways listeners can self-reward to keep momentum?
Absolutely. Set mini milestones, like using 5 new money terms in conversation, and reward yourself maybe with a treat or a fun activity. This builds a cycle of achievement and motivation.
We reminded listeners to subscribe for more lessons. Could you explain how regular exposure to content like our podcast benefits language learners over time?
Subscribing ensures learners get fresh material consistently, which prevents stagnation. Language is dynamic, so ongoing lessons introduce new slang, cultural references, and real-world examples, keeping your skills adaptable.
Is there evidence that regular content consumption improves retention?
Yes, a 2022 study found that students who engaged with weekly language podcasts improved vocabulary recall by 25% compared to those with sporadic exposure.
Our outro visuals featured animated icons and soft music. How do multimedia elements, like images or sound, reinforce vocabulary learning?
Visual and audio cues activate different parts of the brain, making new terms more memorable. For example, associating the word deposit with a cheerful animation helps create a vivid mental link. This multisensory strategy is proven to boost retention.
So even simple emojis or music can make a difference?
Definitely. Emojis add emotional context, while music sets a positive tone. Both help anchor new words in memory. Think of them as bookmarks for your brain.
Before we wrap up, what are 3 practical steps our listeners can take right now to keep improving their money vocabulary in English?
First, review today's key terms using flashcards. Second, try writing a short dialogue using these words. Third, comment on our episode with your personal savings goal in English practice in action.
Why is immediate practice after learning so effective?
Immediate use of new language helps transfer knowledge from passive recognition to active recall, which is essential for real-world communication.
Many learners struggle with consistency. What are common obstacles when building English money vocabulary, and how can listeners overcome them?
A frequent challenge is feeling overwhelmed by unfamiliar terms, especially idioms. To overcome this, break learning into manageable chunks. Focus on 5 words a week and review them in different contexts, like reading, writing, and speaking.
Some might fear making mistakes. How should they handle that?
Mistakes are part of the process. In fact, studies show that learners who embrace errors improve faster. Treat each slip as a learning opportunity and celebrate progress, not perfection.
As we say goodbye, what's your final message for listeners who want to keep building their English skills, especially around money topics?
Remember, every day you practice, you invest in your future fluency. Join our community, comment, and subscribe to stay inspired and connected. Your journey is unique, but together we can achieve amazing progress.
Thank you for joining and sharing your insights. To everyone listening, keep learning, stay curious, and let us know, what do you want to save for?
We can't wait to hear your goals. Until next time, happy learning and smart saving.